I didn't know I didn't know there were teams lining up saying, hey, heard you're looking to deal for Ohio. What time can we pick them up? Just because it was rumored once doesn't mean it's going to happen. So, let's just calm down on that for probably 50 different reasons. But, making a trade is difficult. Making a trade of a guy who had double knee surgery and has $30 million left on his contract is, I'm not sure what the adjective is to describe it, but it's more than difficult, that's for sure. So how Kendrys Morales fits into a sudden logjam at first, I don't really get. And I don't get the Chris Denorfia thing either for almost the same reason. I mean, he's a veteran right-handed bat who, has some success against left-handers. I guess would be a guy that would platoon with David Murphy if Murphy's here come opening day. I mean, I think Murphy's a guy that the Indians, are probably shopping, but are also comfortable with him coming back. But if Denorfia was signed and was platooning with David Murphy, not that I'd be sad to see him go, but what does that have, or what happens to Ryan Rayburn then? And like I said, not that I'd be sad to see him go, but that's a guy that they have under contract for 2015. So that kind of raises a question mark to me, because Denorfia would essentially be taking the exact role that Ryan Rayburn has had, kind of your right-handed bat off the bench and platoon guy against left-handed hitters. And, so then I would ask the question again, kind of like we talked last week, are the Indians willing for the first time to eat salary, to get out of maybe some of their short-term mistakes? Because that has not been their normal characteristic in the off-season. They've eaten salary in the regular season. When they've dealt guys, they've paid their salary for the rest of the year. But it has been very un-Indian-like to trade a player away and still pay them, or to cut a guy loose with years left on his salary. And I mean, Rayburn doesn't make a lot, but again, that has not been the Indian way. And to be honest, I mean, I'm not sure that Chris Denorfia is necessarily a gigantic upgrade even from Ryan Rayburn.
Right.
If you're going to pay him his salary and eat Rayburn's, I'm not sure that Denorfia is worth his own salary and Ryan Rayburn's.
I agree.
Just letting Ryan Rayburn take another stab at it.
I agree. And trust me, the people that get after the Dolans and get after the Indians, this is the stuff they attack me with, which makes it hard. I get it. I can deal with the market restraints and the payrolls. I understand it. It sucks, and we'll talk about that, and we can always argue about it and stuff like that, and we can fantasize. But when guys send me messages, guys like Vic, I could go on. I could list 20 guys right now that send me messages that say, what in the hell am I looking at names like Chris Denorfia and Kendrys Morales and so on and so forth, and that's the stuff that the fans come back to me with, and they go, listen, I'm not asking you to go sign Alex Rodriguez, just throwing a big name out there, and not the actual Alex Rodriguez, but I wouldn't take him for free. But the point is nobody's asking for you to go necessarily get Victor Martinez and spend that money, but it truly infuriates so many of the fan base when it's the opposite end. And I know where you're at. It can't be middle of the road $6 million guys. That makes a whole lot of sense too. But to the fan base, they look at it as dumpster diving. They literally go, this is ridiculous. The offseason started. I could see the Indians kicking tires on some of these guys in February when they're looking to round out the roster. But when these are the first names that they're their first targets of the Indians, that is what sets a lot of Indians fans off, and it makes it hard for me to argue back with that.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I guess I don't even know if it's a counter argument to that, but I feel like the things that we see and that we hear, I mean, the same thing I said last week is everything that's leaked is leaked from someone and is leaked with leaked with a prerogative from someone, and when you can. Every rumor I look at, especially when it involves the Indians, I always ask myself, who who stands to gain by leaking that? And I can see where the Indians put phone calls into a lot of guys. I mean, Chase Headley is a prime example to me. I mean, I think the Indians put a phone call into he and his agent because I think they're looking to upgrade from Lonnie Chisenhall at third base, and I think that they should be looking to upgrade from Lonnie Chisenhall at third base. I'm not sure that they consider themselves major players in Chase Headley or ever did, but they're doing their due diligence in a phone call. Well, maybe it's advantageous to Chase Headley in his camp as he watches Pablo Sandoval and Haley Ramirez go off the board for big money. Now it's easy to leak that, hey, the Indians are involved and are interested also, and now I'm up to 5 teams that are calling on me because that just pushes his value through the roof as guys go off the board. Right. So, I mean, how serious were the Indians in on Chase Headley? Who knows? I mean, you can play the flip side, and, I mean, just because they haven't signed anyone yet, and I'm not sure that they're going to or that they're close to, but just because they put a phone call into Chris Denorfia, too, doesn't mean that they're looking to sign him tomorrow. I mean, that may be a phone call of, hey, is this a place that you'd be interested in? We may have a situation where, a month or 6 weeks from now, we're working on some other deals where maybe, we have a role for you against lefties. I mean, maybe they make a deal with someone, and part of the deal is, we'll make this deal, and you have to take Ryan Rayburn from us. Then all of a sudden, Rayburn is jettisoned off to another team, and the Indians have that role available for someone like a Denorfia, maybe for similar salary as what Rayburn's getting. I think just because you hear it today doesn't mean it's going to happen today. And I think some people forget that when you open, we're so instantaneous now. So when you open Cleveland.com and you see Paul Hoynes, that they've had talks with these guys. They've probably had talks with 25 other guys too, and they're probably not signing any of them either. And that doesn't mean that they're cheap in any way. It just means that they've got a lot of phone calls out there because it's not even Thanksgiving yet.
Mike, I hear every word that you just said, and and I'm telling you because I've already got one of them here while we're talking, what cats come back to me with is that's all fine and well, because I say the same thing. It's all fine and well, but that's not what they do. Plain and simple, that's what people come back at me with is you're talking about what other teams would do or what somebody may be doing. I'm talking about what I've watched the Indians do for 90% of the off seasons, and that's where you're like, well, come January, they may be right, and then I'm going to have a hard time coming back to this conversation with so-and-so because they're going to go, well, back in November when you and Mike told me that the Indians may be doing this, and it's too early that, and then when they signed the 2 guys that we're talking about and they didn't sign anybody else, then people go, see, same old Dolans. And I'm just saying, whether what we're talking about is right or wrong, this is the way the fans talk. It's the way the majority of them think, and it is part of the problem of what's wrong with the fan base and the Indians. You can tell me that's not fair. You can tell me that's not right, but you cannot tell me that it's not true.
Oh, I don't disagree at all that it's not true. I think, like most fans, I think Indians fans in general, and I think this is true of almost every team in all of sports, fans live in a vacuum of their own team. And, you don't look up too much other than the big news to see what other teams are doing. And the thing is that it all ties together. And it's easy to say that the Indians should just go out and sign somebody. But, first of all, you got to have somebody that is ready to make a deal and to sign. There's a lot of wheels in motion there. It's not, it's not fantasy football. You just can't go to the waiver wire on Tuesday and put a claim in. And if it's your turn at the top of the waiver wire, then you get the guy. I mean, it doesn't work that way. And, so for all those reasons, I think, it takes time. And honestly, that's why they have winter meetings, essentially, because they get a whole bunch of people locked in a hotel room and literally billions of dollars at this point available, and things start happening. And so, at this point, a lot of it, I think, is posturing and kind of exploring options. And, it's easy to see the Red Sox go and make huge moves this week, but it's not like the Indians are sitting around while 29 other teams are all making major moves, and the Indians are just watching the show. So, there's a lot of talk and not a lot of action from all around baseball so far. And, I'm not going to come on here and tell you that I think the Indians are about to drop another $100 million like they did a couple winters ago on improving their roster. But, I think there is something to the idea of some rumors of a guy like Chase Headley and of, some rumors of trying to trade Nick Swisher, and that I think, whether it happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think, the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think the Indians are at least going down the road of trying to move some big salary and probably trying to bring some big salary in to replace it.
And it's also, too, it's, balanced in several trades. I've told some guys this. I said they may get several different scenarios where each one affects the other. So it's like putting pieces together. It's like, well, if we make trade A, C, and D, or moves or whatever, then this is what happens to the payroll. Now, if we want to go with B, then we got to drop A and we got to go with E and whatever, putting the jigsaw puzzle together. It's like when you play 1 week fantasy football and you got the roster and all of a sudden you want to upgrade a position and you go, well, I gotta dump this guy and find a cheaper guy at this position so I can spend more there, so on and so forth. It'll be interesting. And there's still a ton, like you said, a ton of guys out there, a lot of things to be done. But by the time we finish this conversation, somebody's going to go, yeah, well, I'm going to have this same conversation with you in a couple of months, and they may. And then at that point, all I got to do is go, yeah, you're right, man. But anyways, and Morales, I'll just throw this out there on him. I personally believe that he is their plan B if they're able to trade Nick Swisher. Maybe he would be a guy that I don't think they're necessarily talking to for just to sign, but should something go into effect, then there's a guy that you could slot into that role, because as you said, once you move something, then a spot opens up and then it becomes there. I got to get a kick out of the line in the article that makes me laugh the most. The Indians have liked Morales since 2006. That's literally a decade ago. But anyways, man, and if they wait long enough, he may be the right price at some point. I'm just kidding. But let's talk about these scenarios here. Mike, you had a few in mind. What are you thinking? What are you thinking the Indians are thinking right now?
Well, if I could predict what other people were thinking, I'd probably have a better job than what I do. I don't know necessarily about a better job. I'd probably
be better at the job.
Or have a better paying gig.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I would have less. I'd just be working at Carnival guessing people's weight. I don't know.
Carney, hell yeah! All right.
But anyways, I mean, I think in talking about the Indians and their moves, they have a number of parts definitely available where they can make their team better. And to be honest, I think this is really kind of a unique winner for the Indians in that they have, I don't want to say spare parts, because I don't think you can only win 85 games and then just have, some overwhelming, saturation of talent, but they certainly have guys of value, I suppose, that I think they're willing to part with in the right deals. And this week, one of the guys that I looked at is Jose Ramirez as a guy who could potentially bring back value to help the team. And I just laid out two possible scenarios, and I'm not advocating that they're going to happen or predicting, as I said in the story, predicting making a trade is really hard. Predicting one is probably impossible, but two teams that really are looking in some ways to be competitive and are looking for a shortstop or a middle infielder are the New York Mets and the Cincinnati Reds. And, both of them are kind of in some different situations. The Mets are a team on the rise that has a lot of young pitching, and they may have a pitcher to deal if they would like. And, I think a lot of people feel that the Indians, maybe their biggest weakness is, on the offensive side, but, Chris Antonetti